We all know the feeling. It's both raging and unforgiving. It's the feeling we get when we scroll on Instagram and we see the lives of celebrities and we see the lives of successful people and then look back at our lives and feel bad about ourselves. It's the feeling we get when we see people who are successful in areas where we sometimes fail, and it causes both resentment for that person and towards ourselves. Sometimes this feeling can disguise itself as motivation to improve, a push to get better. But even in this situation, this feeling does much more damage than good. What feeling am I talking about? Today on the link, we talk about the cancer of comparison. Hey, what's up, YouTube? My name is Professor X, and welcome to The Link. Here on my channel, I like to focus on all of the important areas of our lives: our friendships, our relationship with God, and our God-given purpose, and to present Christ as the missing link to bring everything together. Alright, so today we are talking about comparison. Now, this subject is not new. We've heard it from many places, we've heard it many times. People say don't compare, stop comparing yourself. But something that I've realized is that comparing is usually talked about in a very brief manner. A lot of times you don't necessarily hear entire messages on not comparing or entire talks on it. So sometimes we can understand we shouldn't compare, but sometimes it can be harder to understand why, especially since comparing can be so easy and simple to do. Based on what Google says, comparing is simply considering the differences and similarities of two things or people. That is so easy to do. You can look at a car and easily compare it to another car and say, okay, this one is better. Or you can look at a person's skills, compare it to another person's skills, and say, well, this person is more talented, right? We use comparison all the time to help us categorize different things and know how different things work and how they're different from each other. But at the same time, this can come to attack many of the things that are important to us. And so today I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why comparison to other people is cancerous. The first reason why comparison is cancerous is because it hinders you from seeing the beauty of what God has placed in your hands. If you wanted to put a subtitle under that, you could say that as long as you're looking at the chicken on someone else's plate, you're going to miss the steak right in front of you. Now, basically what that means is, you go through life, you acquire things, but when you compare what you have with someone else, it often stops you from seeing the good in what you have. So for example, let's say you have a pair of shoes that are about a year old, but you always look good in them. They're your favorite pair of shoes from the time you bought them until now. But you saw someone else who has the latest model of those shoes, and when you see them, all of a sudden, you don't like your shoes anymore. All of a sudden, you think they look ugly. All of a sudden, you think they're worthless. But the truth is, those shoes still have a lot of value. Yes, they're a year old, but you love them. They are the ones that you wanted for so long. All of a sudden, you throw all of that away just because somebody else has the newer version. If you wanted to carry this on a bigger scale, let's say you found out that your purpose was to serve in non-profit organizations because you have a heart for people. But then you see on television how athletes, celebrities, and certain ministers get a lot of attention. And when you see the fame, when you see the glamour, all of a sudden you look back at what you're doing and you think it's less significant. You wonder to yourself, why did I have to choose this path? Why couldn't I have their life? Why couldn't I have, their calling? And all of a sudden you don't see the value in helping people anymore just for the sake of it. You know, when you do that, it can take your eyes off of the value of what you have been called to. Because the truth is, as a person working in a non-profit organization, you get to help so many people's lives with things that are important to their life, right? That is a huge blessing in itself. But oftentimes the temptation in comparison is to think that what we have compared to them isn't as good. But when we see it that way, then it also affects how we steward our gift. Because if we don't see the beauty in what we've been given, we're not going to treat it as if it's beautiful. And if we don't treat it as if it's beautiful, we're not going to be entrusted with greater things. Because the word says that if we cannot handle what belongs to somebody else, who's going to give us what belongs to us? If we can't see the beauty in what is in our hands, we're not going to receive any more than we have already been given. And so we can become stagnant, almost in a cycle. And that's obviously not what any of us want. The second reason why comparison is cancerous is because it often leads to idolatry. When we think about comparison, the truth of it is, it's an issue of worship. What or who do we worship? Do we worship riches? Do we worship celebrities? Do we worship trends? Do we worship success? And the reason why we have to know these things is because oftentimes comparison works in very subtle ways and drives our actions. Because let's say we're on Instagram and we see, I'm a golfer, so I'm going to use a golfing example. We see Tiger Woods practicing. He's grinding, he's getting things done. And then when you look back at your own situation, you realize, I'm not doing enough. I have to go forward. I have to do this and that. Even though you have other responsibilities that are calling for your immediate attention, you throw those aside because I need to practice golf. The reason why is because, let's say you worship fame, and Tiger Woods is famous because he plays golf. So that means I need to practice golf. Now, if we are not careful, comparison can make us slaves to certain things. This is based on Romans 6:16, where it says, "Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death, or of obedience unto righteousness." What this says is that whatever we worship, we will serve. We're going to give of our time, our energy, and our effort to serve this thing. If we worship fame, we're going to do whatever we can to become famous. If we worship wealth, we'll do whatever it takes to become wealthy. Whether it means sacrificing other important things like family, purpose, whatever it is, we chase after that because that is what we're after. Now, continuing from point number 2, point number 3 says that comparison leads us to follow trends and formulas but miss purpose and calling. This is based on Proverbs 14 verse 12, and it says, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." Now, going back to our analogy about the person called to work in non-profit. If you worship fame and you worship wealth and the spotlight, it causes you to turn your eyes off of service that no one sees to chase after that fame. But this can have you going down a rabbit hole of chasing formulas, chasing step-by-step processes, all of these things to become rich and famous, but then you totally miss what God has called you to do. Instead of serving those who are in need, you are figuring out how you need to speak publicly, how to become good at press conferences, how to become good at networking, how to become good at investing with big players, and all of these things, not realizing that you should be focusing on how to serve, how to be patient, how to be kind, how to be diligent in your work, all of these other things that you need to be doing, but instead you're focusing on what everyone else says is right. A lot of times comparison causes us to stick to the status quo, what everyone else says is the right thing to do. But the truth is, everyone is unique. Not everyone is called to be famous. Not everyone is called to have all of this wealth. And that's all right, because a society needs many different roles for it to function properly. If everyone goes in a certain field, then there's going to be a huge imbalance. If there was no one to clean the streets would always be dirty. If there was no one to keep the grounds on the golf course, it would not be nearly as beautiful as we say they are. So we can't allow comparison to cause us to go down the generic route. We have to allow the Spirit of God to guide our unique callings. The fourth reason why comparison is cancerous is because it attacks the fruit of the Spirit. Now, when we look at the word, more specifically in Galatians 5:22, it tells us, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. Against such there is no law." However, when we look at these gifts, it says that they are the gifts of the Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the one that shows us these gifts, that works them within us. But the truth is, God can only do these things in people who are authentic, those who that chase after Him, those that seek Him, because He is the source. There's no career that can give you joy. There is no amount of money that can give you joy. There is no person that can give you joy. The only person who can do that is God. And it's the same for all of the other fruits of the Spirit. Love, patience, any of them. God is that source. But comparison turns our eyes away from God and onto other things, whether it's a job, a career, or a person. And we can find ourselves getting fake versions of these fruits that don't last. We might get euphoria, we might get happiness, but they can't compare to joy. We may get circumstantial peace, but we have no internal peace. We may get fulfillment in a job, but we don't get the eternal fulfillment of achieving purpose. And so all of these things attack what God wants for us within ourselves, because we're not chasing who we're meant to be, but we're chasing someone else's calling. The final reason, and the most dangerous one, why comparison is cancerous is because it causes us to pray dead prayers. This is based on James chapter 4 verses 2 and 3, and it says, "Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have, and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not, because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not, because ye ask amiss, that ye may consume it upon your lusts." What this is showing us is that comparison causes us to pursue someone else's dream. So we fight, we have competitions, we grab after certain things. But as we do all of that, we are chasing something that's not ours, and God does not give someone else's blessing to another person. We can't ask God for someone else's dream. We can only pursue God for what is ours. So for example, you see someone get a particular house in a certain area. So because of that, you tell yourself, okay, cool, I'm going to ask God for a house in this area. But God does not honor motives like that, because He knows that the motive is not to bring Him glory. The motive is not to fulfill a need. The motive is to chase after something that we think is important simply because someone else did it, or someone else influential is doing it, or whatever the case is, based on a frivolous standard instead of the steadfast standard of God's glory and fulfillment of our purpose. The truth is that God has given all of us unique gifts and talents that are all important, that are all needed. God has never made anyone without a purpose. And so regardless of how insignificant some of our talents may feel, God has a supreme purpose for all of it. And so He wants us to see the beauty of it so that He can bring it to light. We don't have to chase other people's dreams. We don't have to want what they want because God has blessings for us. We need to take our eyes off of everyone else and focus in on what God has specifically for us. When we do that, we start to see the beauty of our character and we become the person that we have been called to be. We become our best versions when we stop looking at other people's finished books and start to work on our individual chapters. Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. And before you know it, you end up with a fantastic book because now you're focusing on your gifts, on your talents. And that is what God will bless because He knows what He has deposited in you. And so I hope to talk more about this in the coming weeks because the truth is, comparison is a deep topic and something that we have to break free of to experience all that God has for us. And I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Which one of these points hit the hardest? Which one hit home? Because the truth is, all of these points hit home for me. Comparison is something that I have dealt with a lot during my life, and God is helping me to understand why it is time to break away from that and to see the beauty of what He's given me. And so I'd love to hear what your journey has been concerning this. And also, if this has blessed you, I pray that you would leave a like and also consider subscribing and also sharing with a friend. But until next time, I pray that you stay blessed and that you stay in His presence.